Hello, is this thing on? No, I'm just kidding. I know, it's been a while. 6-7 months, something like that since the last video. Just been living life, honestly. Hope you guys are all doing well. But we're gonna get back into making these videos. So I'll probably get back to doing maybe 1 or 2 videos a week. We're gonna try to take each topic and break it down a little bit more. That way you guys can get a little bit better understanding. But today's video is gonna be on this 2011 Chevrolet Corvette Grand Sport that's sitting behind me. It's a cammed LS3 car, automatic. It's got a converter. The deal with this car is like what a lot of you guys run into. Guy purchased the car out of Colorado, knows some engine mods, doesn't know anything about the tuning. Basically just brought it here, wants me to look it over, make sure everything's good, make sure the tune looks like it's supposed to. So we're gonna go over this car today and we're gonna go through the tune. We're gonna check it out mechanically. We're gonna put it on the dyno and see how much power it makes. And we're just gonna kind of give it a good once over. And I want you guys to understand that this is the process of how you guys can take your own HPtuners cable and do it your own way. So let's go ahead on and dive in. Check this Corvette out. Well, they said the car come from Colorado, but it's got Texas tags on there, so who knows. But got a good looking set of wheels on it. Again, this is an automatic car. Got a Circle D 245mm converter, if I remember right. Now it also has a BTR red hot cam. Looks like we got an SLP Blackwing cold air. Got a set of long tubes. So the first thing I want to do is I always check the map sensor, make sure it's actually factory, and that is a factory 1 bar. Next thing I'll do is just look at all the spark plug wires. Now these guys, I know you guys like these boots. These boots are meant for indirect heat. They're not meant for direct heat. So you run these on there, if they're touching the headers, they are gonna burn. It is gonna burn the plug wire. I don't care how good these boots say they are, they're not. So indirect heat though, they work pretty good, but it looks like they're all clear. One looks clear, yeah. Plug wires look clear. So everything under here just looks pretty basic. Again, it's got a BTR red hot cam, so we're gonna tune for that. The only other thing I always like to check, make sure all these lines are attached. Make sure there's no tears in these intake boots, which I've tuned these intakes enough, I'll be able to figure out if it'll get a vacuum leak or not. Or not a vacuum leak, but you know what I mean. Unmetered MAF air leak. Another thing I'll do is check, make sure the mass airflow sensor arrow is facing the right way. You guys will be surprised at how many times I have cars brought in with their MAF is backwards. So, everything looks good under here. Let's get it up in the air. All right, let's go ahead and look this car over. I don't think I've ever seen anybody put casters on the front. That's freaking genius. Now, I'm not a Corvette guy, so maybe this is super common, which this one's stuck. But that's definitely cool. So you used to have a front lip. It doesn't exist anymore. Front tires look good. It's got a nice set of Michelins on here. Underneath, you can definitely tell it was in Colorado or somewhere where we got a little corrosion, but nothing bad. Got some aftermarket brake lines on it. Cook's long tubes. That means these have the, yep. If you guys know, you know. These O2 sensor bungs are terrible. I'm not a fan at all. But got the green cats on here, so that's good. Everything looks okay. A little bit more corrosion, nothing crazy. The aftermarket brake lines back here too. Wait a minute. Yeah. That's not good. I don't think you're supposed to be able to play a country song on your brake lines. I bet somebody ordered these brake lines for a base model car, not for a Grand Sport. So, okay, so that's official. We're definitely not driving the car until these get replaced. Definitely not gonna let the customer leave here like that. Fortunately, the shop that I rent the dyno from, they also do alignments and suspension work. They pretty much do everything. They do cams, they do all that stuff, but we'll definitely get them fixed up. Got the MPP mufflers back here. Got like some heat tape on here. So, rear tires look good. Everything else looks good other than those brake lines. So it'll be fine on the dyno, but definitely not gonna drive it. So anyways, let's get this thing down since it's got the aftermarket front lines, and let's sweep the steering and see if the front lines are too short as well. And I'm not gonna lie, they kind of look short to me. Like, obviously you have this extra space for steering, but I don't think that's enough. All right, well, I went ahead on and started up and turned the wheel. It won't stay at full lock without it running and somebody else in it, but oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, the front's not as bad as the back, but I definitely would not trust that. So this car's definitely gonna get brake lines. But that just goes to show you guys, you know, especially it's the perks of having a 4-post lift in front of your dyno. But if you're doing work for a customer or you're working on your own vehicle, definitely get it up in the air and look these things over. Because I mean, that honestly could have been bad. You know, if that brake line goes, car may get totaled, somebody may get hurt. So let's go ahead and drop this thing down and pull the tune file out of it. All right, so just to make sure you guys know, today's video, we're not gonna have any live data logs. I'm gonna take the data log and then we're gonna go over them. Reason being, apparently in the time that I took off from making videos, either OBS or HPtuners or both require more computer to be able to run both simultaneously. So sometime over the Thanksgiving break, I'm gonna go ahead on and pick up a new laptop where I can actually do some 4K screen recordings. Even trying to have it output like a 720p screen recording still just won't handle it. So anyways, we're gonna go ahead on and we're gonna open up our software. Now, if you're new here, this is the first step. So I use the HPtuners beta software. You can use beta, you can use the regular one, it's completely up to you. But a lot of guys are against using the latest MPVI 3 and the latest software. My stuff is always up to date. I don't run into issues. There's only one specific vehicle where I run into issues from one specific table not being there. If you know, you know. But anyways, we're gonna pull up the VCM editor and we're gonna go ahead on and pull this read file. Now in a Corvette, in order to do the read file, all you've got to do is you hit the accessory button and you hold it down for 10 seconds and that'll power on the ignition completely. Now this car is an automatic car, so we're going to have an ECM and TCM to read out. I don't remember if this year has a fuel pump control module or not. I know the earlier ones don't. But to do a read, all you got to do is you open up your VCM editor. You're going to come up here to the top. You're going to click read vehicle, and then we're going to click read right here. Now, as this laptop is running slow while recording and trying to do a read file, this is how bad it's gotten. I'm not sure what it is. I've tried, I mean, this laptop's on Windows 10. I've tried cleaning it off. It just don't work. So we're going to get something that's got like a, you know, RTX 4080 or 4090 with a good CPU in it, and we'll have some fire recordings coming up soon. But anyway, so it's about to figure out what it's actually going to do. Okay, now the laptop has finally caught up. We've got ECM and TCM. Now this car, we're gonna read both. Now, if you're reading a pickup truck or you're reading something where it's got a fuel pump control module and you don't necessarily need to tune it, all you gotta do to not read one of those is go to this drop down and hit do not read. If you accidentally read it, it's not a problem at all. I've showed you in other videos, and I'll show you in future videos how to remove that controller from your read file. That way you don't have to license it, because I believe the fuel pump control module calls for 1 credit in Gen 4, 1 credit in the CCM module in Gen 5 up to a certain point, and it's 3 credits after that. So you definitely don't want to waste money on tuning a module that you don't even have to actually touch. But anyways, we're going to go ahead on and let this thing read out, and then we're going to dig into this tune file. All right, so as this tune file is reading out, I'm going to go through the list of suspected modifications. Now, obviously, this is hearsay. It's how it goes with buying a used car that's got mods done, is you're going off of what you think you know. I'm not sure if this customer had paperwork or not, but according to this, the modification to the vehicle is LS9 head gasket, which is going to cause just slight drop in compression. I think these are a point... I think they're 59 thou thickness versus 51. Don't hold me to that, but I think that's, you know, I think that's in the ballpark. It's got LS3 Johnson lifters, which is good. New lifter trays, which is okay. So I've been running into a lot of issues with lifter trays here lately. If you can stick your lifter in to your lifter tray before you install them in your engine, just make sure there's zero play there. I've had so many new specific brand lifter trays to where you could basically just take the lifter and turn it sideways. If you can do that, that lifter tray is junk. I'm always going to recommend nowadays, with the quality control of parts, going to a link bar lifter. I know they're expensive, but you get a good Johnson, you know, standard travel slow leak down link bar lifter, you're going to be much more happy. But we've got new lifter trays, got ARP head studs, so it sounds like somebody was prepping this thing to make a little bit of power. Head studs are also not necessary. LS3 engine, I mean, you can literally sling a rod before you actually hurt a head bolt on one of these unless the tune-up's just that far off, in my opinion. Well, we've got Smith Brothers trunnion kit, Circle D GM, 245mm Pro Series, so it's triple disc, 3200 stall. We've got KTEX C5R timing chain, which is good. 3-bolt cam gear conversion, which is good. Hopefully it's a 4-pole. It's starting like it is. If you get a Gen 4 engine where you got long crank time after a cam install, a lot of the times you put a 24X cam gear in it. So it's got to be a 4-pole cam gear. Everything else looks okay. Cam install kit, rocker bolt set. It's got a transmission cooler, which is good. Injectors are stock. It's on 93 pump gas, automatic transmission, which we know. BTR red hot cam, map sensor stock, fuel pump size stock. Spark plug number and gap is stock. Maybe they don't know that, but I mean, maybe they replaced it. But reason for tuning is getting retuned because we bought it in Colorado, so not a problem at all. The shop's already got a little list going on as to what they need to address. So anyways, we're going to go ahead on and pull up this folder. We're going to make a new folder. As you can see, I've got a bunch of tune files in here. It's documents, HPtuners, logs and tunes. So all you're going to do is create a folder. So I got a new folder info, type in customer name. All right, I'm going to create another folder inside the customer folder. 2011 Corvette Grand Sport A6. I'm just call it red hot. And I'm going to take a copy of this. Open up this folder. Paste. I'm going to say read previously tuned elsewhere. All right, so tune file is pulled up. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to load in a compare file, and we're going to see where we're at in this tune file. So to do that, you're going to go up to compare, open compare file. I'm going to go back into my folders. And what I'm going to do, just type in 2011 Corvette. That looks good. So just remember the last digits on here is 270. So I'm going to check it and make sure the operating system is the same. So to do that, I click this little paper button up here. We're under controllers and we end in 270. So you always want to make sure your operating system is the same. Now I'll also double check these, but you always want to make sure you get a correct operating system. Now, if you don't have a stockpile of stock tunes in your laptop, you can go onto the HPtuners repository and you can grab a tune file. Please do not try to flash that into the car. Gen 4, Gen 5, you cannot full flash with HPtuners. So you want to use it for a compare, but don't try to flash it in. If you've got to update your operating system in your car whatsoever, just grab a GM MDI tool. You've probably got a buddy that's got one, or you can stop by the dealership and they can flash it back to stock. You do not want to try to do a write entire on one of these as far as changing files over. Now you can do a write entire for, VATs or something like that, change it to a 2-bar OS, but do not try to flash a tune into the car that is not originally from the car. It just won't do it. You'll probably run into like a P1516 or a P0606. You're going to run into something that's going to cause an ECM issue code. You're going to think you need to replace the computer. You don't. You just need to update your tune file with an MDI. So anyways, we've got the tune in the background. So let's see what we've got here. So under idle, okay, that raised up some RPM, so that looks okay. Nothing crazy. Airflow looks good. Not sure why they modified this ECT multi. I mean, whatever, it works. I'll put it back to stock though. Airflow, MAF has been tuned. Cranking V has been touched. Dynamic airflow set to 4,000, 3,900. Speed density has not been touched. So I'm not sure you guys know, but even if dynamic airflow is set to 4,000, 3,900 right here, the car still primarily runs on MAF. So if your MAF is dialed in, the car's going to run okay. it still references the VE table for startup. It still references it for transient fuel. It still references it for your airflow model. So your speed density table does need to be dialed in, but having it set up like this does work. This car is still essentially MAF only, but we definitely need to dial in the VE table. So that's just, they kind of shortcutted it there. Electronic throttle. Now this is the one that will get you. I'm going to leave this alone because there's been no complaint of reduced engine power. Do not change these desired throttle area maps. Just don't do it. You will get a P0606 or some type of reduced engine power. Make sure go through. All this stuff is stock. Desoot mode is still enabled. Yeah, so I mean, we got some work to do. It was good that they brought it in. There's nothing that I'm seeing catastrophic as of right now. Let's check timing. High octane. Okay, it's not even terribly overtimed. Probably is actually, but I mean, nothing catastrophic. So everything else seems to look okay. I'm going to go through here and make some adjustments. But yeah, so we're going to go ahead on. I'm going to put the wideband in this car. We're going to get it fired up, put it on the dyno. I'm going to make some changes. This video is not going to be necessarily about how to completely tune this car. Just want to kind of give you guys an idea as to what I'm looking for. And once I get the wideband in, we're going to get it up on the dyno, and I'm going to start it up and leaving the V table alone, you know, because they didn't touch it, so I'm not going to touch it right now. And I'm going to data log it and show you guys how to look for your V table being off in your data log. So I'm going to stick this wideband in, and I'll be right back. Now, I wasn't going to show you guys this process of putting in the O2 sensor because it's supposed to be, you know, simple. But the customer spent who knows how much, probably what, $800, $1,100 on these nice catted pipes. Notice the wideband location. Now, we've got two back here that should be for your rear sensors. And this one, you know, the only thing it should be for is wideband, right? So take my wideband. Doesn't matter how you aim it. It won't go in. No way it goes in any direction, right? So it's like, okay, maybe they just missed it on this one. So I was like, well, these rears aren't being used right now. So let's go ahead on and try to put one in there. Same thing. And see, the thing is, you really can't roll these pipes. I mean, maybe I could roll this passenger side, but with the way this flange is and the way they're angled, I mean, why do we got to put wideband bungs in a spot that makes it difficult? I mean, there's all this extra room everywhere else. You spend however much on connection pipes. So if you ever wondered why your tuner is upset, usually it's stupid shit like this. So anyways, I may loosen this up and try to roll it up, and maybe I can get it into that back one, but otherwise I'm just going to pull this front upstream up here and then put my wideband in there for now. Gotta love it. All right, well, after some adjustments, I was able to make it work. So I had to loosen up this clamp, twist with my hand while I had an Allen wrench in the plug that was here, and just got it to turn good enough. So now that I'm done fighting with that, I'll zip tie that up and out of the way, and then we'll get the car down and get on the dyno. All right, now while I got you guys here, I've got the scanner pulled up, wideband sensors in the car. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to import in a channels config. I sell these on the website. As always, I'll have the website link below. But a lot of you guys are buying layouts or you're buying channel setups from me. You don't really know how to install it. So what we're going to do is, if we want to go to channels, we just go over here to the file folder in the top left, and then we just pick which channels we want. So this car is an automatic C6 Corvette. I'll just use this one for right now. Yours will say something different. But you just literally open that file up, click whichever channels list you want. Now, if you've got it downloaded, but you haven't used it before, it's not going to be in this list right here. It's going to be under Open Channel Config. And then you may have to go to your downloads. You may have to go to whatever folder you downloaded it into, but that's where it'll be. So we're going to use the C6 layout right here, or the channels right there. If you want to use a layout, you're going to click Open Layout. Now again, if you haven't used yours before, it's not going to be down here. It's going to be right here under Open Layout, but mine's obviously under here. So I'm going to go to my Gen 4 NA layout, and we're going to start this car up. Now, I told y'all we weren't going to have any live data logs, but at idle and stuff, I mean, you'll see how slow it is, but you guys will be able to get a good idea as to where this car is right now. So to connect to the car, I'm just going to hit the blue car, and then we're going to hit the record button here in a minute. So the goal for me, which obviously I just know it needs to be tuned, but obviously I'm trying to make content for you guys. Now, again, if you've been wondering where I'm at, I've been doing remote tunes for the last couple months. I think I've done somewhere around 800 remote tunes since March. So you guys have been keeping me busy, and I appreciate that so much. Hope I've been able to help out a lot of you guys. So, but yeah, if you need a remote tune, you can also check out the website. But obviously, I'd like to just make sure you guys can tune your own. And even if you want to get a remote tune or a base file from me, and then you guys fine tune it from there, I have all those options available. So anyways, we're going to look at this thing. Like I said, you're going to see how horribly slow this data log is going to be. See, I mean, you see how just, yeah, it's bad. So like, this is honestly what global B tuning looks like. Like when I tuned the red giveaway truck, this is literally what I was looking at. I think they have it fixed though now. But anyways, you guys can see fuel trims right now are, it's pulling fuel. I haven't looked at long terms. Oh, it's even slow scrolling down. I'm not even logging long terms. And in case you guys are wondering, I've tried deleting channels. I've tried a number of things. It's literally, as soon as I turn off the record button, everything works beautifully. It's literally just the fact that OBS is running in the background. But I'm going to check out long-term fuel trims as well. But if you look right here, so this is what the MAF is seeing right here. Dynamic air is the final fueling of the car, and this is where VE is. So you'll see where, I don't know, what does that work out to? We're about 30% off. So you'll see in my layouts that you guys can pick up from the website, you'll see where it's VE versus dynamic airflow error. And you'll see this is how far off we are between MAF and VVE. So the whole point of doing it this way is you can tune them simultaneously, but just for you guys learning, tune the MAF. The easiest way for you, especially on the street, is going to be dial it in, say below 6,000 hertz on the MAF, just dial it in with your short-term fuel trims. Don't use long terms, use short terms, and take a lot of data. Like I'm talking 30, 45-minute data logs. You'll have some really good averages on your short terms. And then obviously above 6,000 hertz, really it's about 7,000 hertz, so you can start doing the wide open throttle part. But yeah, so as you can see, VE is definitely off, which of course the car is cold too, so it's only going to get worse as we warm up the car. But obviously I can't utilize this data log that I'm taking right now while recording, so I'll stop the record. I'm going to go ahead on and turn on long-term fuel trim channels. If you guys, actually, we'll stop recording right now. If you're unsure how to add channels, you'll just scroll down to where you want to add them to. So I always try to keep my long terms around short terms, that way it's easy to look. But you'll right click, add channel, and then you can, up here where it says text filter, you can just type in what you want. So we'll go LTFT, and you just double click what you want to add, and then that'll populate into your channels list over here. So it's pretty easy to add channels. Same thing with the wideband, which obviously I have the wideband set up here. But if you have this, I'm using the AEM 30-0334, and I just have it plugged into a cigarette lighter right now. You guys will see what we've got. But if you just need to add this thing, let me, I'll remove this channel. So I'll show you guys how to add it real quick. So you're going to right click again. You're going to go to add channel. And then you're going to scroll down. You'll see this OBD controller right here. You'll click plus, plus, plus under open loop, open and close loop, auction sensors, and then just double click wideband EQ ratio 1. You always want to learn how to tune in lambda. I know some of you guys want to look at air fuel ratio, but I just don't recommend it. Just learn to tune in lambda. Your life will be so much easier. Like if this car were on flex fuel, everything would be easy. Whereas if you're trying to dial in commanded air fuel ratio and doing calculations in the background, it's not fun on air fuel ratio. So just stick with lambda. But anyways, wideband is added. So I'm going to go ahead on, again, I'm going to shut this camera recording off. I'm going to take a good data log, and then I'll bring you guys back into it. All right, so the car warmed it all the way up to temp. So if you guys want to kind of see what the logs look like, right here I'm looking at long-term plus short-term fuel trims versus MAF. Looks like we're roughly about 12% off or so. Now keep in mind they have the stoic set to factory, which I don't know if I even showed you guys that, but Stoic is set to 14.68 because it's going to default to 0 on these because there's no flex fuel sensor. So that's going to automatically be a 4% difference in fueling right there, because I'll change that to 14.08. As I'll go on and play the log, which it's also, even playback is slow right now. It wasn't like that in person with the camera not recording. But you'll see the VE versus dynamic airflow error. You'll see where we're 30% off here, 40% off here. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, I do remote tune a lot of these cars. So I'm going to go ahead on and throw in a good VE table. And I'm going to add like 8% to the MAF, like across the board. When I pulled up the 2D version of the MAF here, let me stop this playback. When I pulled up the 2D version of the MAF, it didn't look bad. So I went ahead on and added some fuel here, but you guys will see it's got a good shape. So they at least did make sure the MAF curve looked good. I'm going to pull timing back. I'm going to just go through here and do the basic stuff that I've showed you guys in other videos. Nothing crazy. The only thing that I did notice is the transmission is definitely going to need some help. Let me pull up 2011 Corvette, put that back in the background again. Yep, we got that one. And if you look, again, this car has a 3200 stall. If you look, all they did was adjust the full throttle shift points. They raised them up. I think there was a little bit of shift pressure. There was. Oncoming, offgoing were set to factory. Shift timing, they reduced it. The torque adders on the 1.2 and the 2.3, but didn't touch anything else. The torque converter itself, they didn't mess with any of the pressures here. They just disabled the converter up to 4th gear, which, I mean, it's fine, but we can just definitely do better. Torque management, they turned off some of it. Now, it still did actually have the regular shift torque management, but they turned off some of the stuff that they didn't necessarily need to. So we're going to definitely adjust on that. But again, this specific video is just kind of like a I'm back kind of video. But once I replace this laptop, we'll start digging into the live data logs again and showing you guys the specific on how to do the VE, how to do the MAF again, just the generic stuff that you guys always like to see. So I'm going to go ahead on and make these adjustments, and I'm going to start running this thing in on the dyno, and I'll bring you guys back for that. Now, as I'm going back through here, putting a lot of stuff back to stock, just, basically I just want to let you guys know, like I said, I've been remote tuning, like I said, over 800 remote tunes since March. I also still come to the dyno. I mean, I would say probably at least 3 times a week. I purposely haven't been doing as much local stuff. Just too many issues trying to get parts, things like that. It's just not fun anymore. And so that's one thing is I want you guys to understand is, like, if you're going to get into this, try to keep it as your hobby. If you want to make it a full-time gig, you're more than welcome to, and I recommend, as many people do that. It's one of those things where if you can do this as a hobby, you can make some good side money, you can enjoy life. When you try to get into this as a full-time gig, you just run into all these dumb problems, and it's just not fun, honestly. Like, some days, like, remote tuning doesn't bother me whatsoever, but when it comes down to in-person stuff, almost every day there's something going on, which I don't know if you can tell, but even my computer's even being slow, even just making some changes like this. For the most part, I'm just going back to stock on everything. I'll make some adjustments to like the idle stuff like I just did. Double check startup timing. You could probably like a little bit more here, put 5 in it. Just going to go back over and undo a lot of this mess. But just wanted you guys to know that. Like I said, I've been around. I try to ignore my phone now, so if anybody's trying to text me or anything like that, I just ignore it. I check my emails on my laptop. I just use a regular Windows laptop, so I don't get text messages and stuff on there. I just try to, just try to enjoy life. So put knock sensors back to factory. Just go back through a lot of this stuff. But when it comes down to it, we're going to put burst knock back to factory as well. I don't really care too much about, and then I'm going to half. I'll zero these out, and then I'll half. This doesn't need as much burst knock, but I don't really care so much about the power this thing makes. It's going to run pretty decent, but I wasn't concerned about doing a dyno before. Like, I don't try to brag over somebody, or, honestly, the car may make a little bit less power than what it came in with, because it was, like,
there was 3 or 4 degrees over stock, and these cars don't really like much more than factory timing, honestly, like on 93 octane. Now obviously 85 is a whole different ball game, but I just really don't care too much about how much power the car actually makes. I just want it to be safe for the customer. You're not going to notice, say there's a 8 horsepower difference when it comes to you know, say 26 degrees versus 23 degrees. It's just not worth it. You're not going to be able to feel it. One thing I always do on here, I don't know if you guys have seen me do this before or not, but traction control enable, I always move it up the same that I moved up idle. It just to keep it out of the way. You'd be surprised. Some of these Corvettes are weird with traction control. Like I've had some cars where you just basically just have to completely turn it off. This AC torque reduction right here, if you're ever driving a cammed car and you're going down the road and you just feel like it just kind of comes in and out just randomly, it's this AC torque reduction. I just zero it out because honestly with the amount of RPM that we idle these things at, it doesn't need that. Like they drive just fine with it zeroed out. Engine diag, for now I'm just going to move this stuff completely out of the way until I get the airflow model dialed in. That one's fine. Misfire counters, the same thing. It looks like they already had them modified. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and load this in and we'll see how much closer it is. Then when it's time to load in the tune, I've already modified everything for the most part. I'm just kind of running through this stuff quickly. Like I'll obviously off camera, I'm going through and I'll get deeper and deeper into it. But you just click that, you always got to remember to disconnect from the scanner. You just click the red arrow to send it in. We're going to send in both engine and TCM. Even though I didn't touch the TCM, I'm just going to go ahead on and send it in. But this is just the process that I do. So I look them all over, make sure everything's okay, kind of slowly work my way into it. Whenever it comes down to, I don't want to reinvent the wheel because the mods on this car are still a little bit unknown. You know, the customer said it's got a red hot in here. I haven't seen a receipt at all. That could have been just what somebody put in the Facebook Marketplace ad. You know, like guys will just say whatever. So I've seen so many times where guys will do like a stage 3 truck cam in a 5.3 and they'll throw some long tubes on it. And then you'll see built 5.3. Like you just can't trust stuff off Marketplace nowadays. So I'm going to just try to somewhat trust what he thinks is in the car, but it wouldn't surprise me if the VE table is still going to be off, things like that. But yeah, so I try not to reinvent the wheel on cars with unknown mods. Now, if I know all the mods, like I said, I remote tune these things so much. I traditionally have VE tables that are already super close. Like when I'm doing remote tuning, sometimes they'll, even on NA cars, sometimes they'll get up in the, 15 to 20 revisions because I want to make sure that VE's dialed in, MAF is dialed in. And I do the same thing on in-person stuff, but just kind of want to give you guys an idea of where I'm at on this thing. But yeah, if you guys need anything, if you want to leave me a comment and let me know what you want me to specifically go over, there's thousands of comments that I have not looked through. I mean, I literally, when I say that I didn't look at my phone this whole time, I didn't look through message requests. I haven't looked through anything. Like I just needed some time because obviously things got hectic really fast. I mean, you can imagine doing 800 remote tunes in what would it be at 8 months? So 100 tunes a month, like that's a lot. Plus still driving. So this shop is in Kentucky, which I live in Tennessee. So I have to make that drive. It's a lot. And then, going out on the lake and riding motorcycles and stuff like that. Like it's a lot. So I just had to just kind of mellow out. But now it's wintertime, obviously no longer boat season, no longer motorcycle season really. Like I'm not that big of a diehard. So now I'll start making some more videos and just try to get, this process a little bit better as far as with a new laptop, I'll be faster at video editing. I'll be faster at a lot of things. So it'll help me get these videos out to you guys. But anyways, tune is in. We're going to go in and fire this thing up. Started right up. And I'm going to start the scanner with you guys watching. It's going to be slow. But even though the data is coming in slow, you'll still kind of be able to get an idea as to how much better everything looks. So again, this is a VE table from my Red Hot Cam repository, I guess. I mean, every tune I do, I try to label it, like what intake it has, what camshaft it has, things like that. And that just ultimately allows me to be able to run through these things fast. So if you're extremely detailed on your tunes, then you can start to use them in other people's vehicles. Now, yes, every vehicle is different, but your VE table, if it's similar mods, VE table should be pretty much spot on. If it's the same cold air intake, your MAF curve should be pretty spot on. I mean, you can get very good at these things. So I know a lot of you guys are against can tunes, but you'd be surprised. A good can tune means that it's probably been installed in hundreds of vehicles and just super dialed in, which again, I don't do can tunes. Any of my remote tuning customers will tell you that. Like, you know, even I could have a super basic combination and I still go through the MAF and VE table on everything. Literally every vehicle, it gets double, triple checked. Now I may have some where they're done in 3 or 4 revisions, and that's just, it works out good for me, works out good for them. But you know, I don't have like a timeline on my tuning. As long as you're not changing stuff, I'll help you get dialed. And then obviously I want to be able to teach you guys how to do this after the fact, because even after I remote tune it, if you want to make some tweaks, because I don't put all the timing in there. Usually shift points I may leave a little bit on the table. Just depends on, you know, the area that you have to do pulls in. You know, I've got some customers that live in the city where they can't really do pulls, so they have to wait till they go to the drag strip, which is ideal. You know, I do not really like customers doing pulls on the street unless it's a slow vehicle. But you know, there's usually a little bit of stuff that you guys can tweak. Some guys like the converter to not lock up super early. You know, with a loose converter like this, if you want to keep heat out of it, you've got to get that converter locked. So I have some guys that are like, you know what, I'll put a bigger transcooler on here and then we'll leave it unlocked, because they feel a little bit more sporty when you delay the lockup. But already everything's looking pretty good. I did disable long term, so they should be 0, which they are. MAF curve, we're only a couple % off. The V table is looking good. Now, it does look like I'm a little bit off in the lower regions, but honestly, this data is kind of skewed right now. You guys can see how slow this is. I mean, it's moving at the speed of smell right now, honestly. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead on, and I'm in vehicle simulation mode on the dyno. I'm going to stop the recording, that way I have normal speed data, and just kind of drive it, get an idea where we're at, and start working on the MAF curve. I'll do it again since you guys are with me. I'll do the short-term stuff. Again, traditionally, if I'm by myself and I'm trying to knock one of these out, I'll go open loop, and then I'll do EQ error versus MAF on 90% of the MAF curve. Idle, just so you guys are aware. And I get this email and comment all the time. Idle, trust your narrow bands. Your narrow bands are really good in that small window of maintaining lambda. Don't trust your wideband for that, especially not one of these $250 widebands. Now, if we were on an engine dyno, we had a good lab grade wideband, it's better than narrow bands. But with what we have, we trust our narrow bands. And so some guys may wonder, you know, hey, is this 30-0334, which speaking of, I'll have a link for it down below. Is it good enough for tuning? It absolutely is. For your natural aspirated engines, I mean, you got to remember this Bosch 4.9 sensor is what the Holley Terminator X, you know, uses, and I've made 1400 plus wheel horsepower on a Terminator X. I've got cars in the 7s on Terminator X on a single Bosch 4.9, so it can be trusted. Its limitation is really the hardware, the AEM part itself, but for what you guys are going to be doing, it is perfect. Now, if this was a 1,000 plus horsepower stock ECU car, I've got a Ballinger wideband with dual NTK sensors that I would put in here, and I would be averaging the two and getting a lot more technical, which I can do a video with that also. But anyways, I'm going to shut off the recording now and quit rambling and get this data log going, and then we'll come back and look at it. All right, I know this is not ideal, but I'm going to go ahead on and just take a little video of the data. I definitely need to correct the over-under spark for in gear. I know you guys love the chop, but it's just hard to even sit still with it chopping like that. But if you look, you'll see this is how far off my VE table is, which obviously this is raw data that's just coming in kind of quick, and it's based off of dynamic airflow, which is based off of the MAF right now. So we're still in the ballpark. It's not going to take me a lot to correct. What I'll do is I can throw this thing into manual mode, and let me pull up the gear that we're in up there. Oh, this car's got HUD. Okay, so we're heads-up display on this one. So you can't really see that. Maybe you can. Yeah, I've got it down to third now. So anyways, on the dyno, I can just do this. Now you guys can do this on the street too. I mean, if you've got a good open road and you want to collect this, you know, high manifold vacuum, higher RPM area, you can just kind of just keep going. You know, if we need more, just downshift it again. So you'll see again, I'm pretty far off on my VE table up here. Fuel trims are actually looking pretty good. So this may or may not be a red hot cam. I'm usually not this far off. I'm usually like plus or minus like 8% or so with this setup. So may have a different camshaft in this thing. Or, I mean, also, you know, exhaust will change it. Cold air intake will change it. So this specific VE table that I use was based off of a Camaro. So maybe some of that's causing a little bit of differences here. But anyways, I'm going to grab as much data as I can, and then I'll bring you guys back with the screen recording. All right, no, I just basically just finished just some minor, you know, sweeping through the VE table, just to try to get an idea of where I'm at. And you guys can see I'm pretty far off up here. Now, one thing I will tell you guys is I built this table off of a car that had a fuel pump control module, so it understands injector delta pressure. This car doesn't. So because of that, it is going to skew some readings, because just I'll personally, I feel like it's just how GM calculates injector data on the Corvettes is a little bit different. So a lot of the times, if you look at the earlier Corvettes, I don't know if this one's going to have it or not. If you look at the earlier yeah, okay. So if you look at the earlier Corvettes, from like 128 to like 408 will be one number, and then above 48 will be another number. And they just calculate a little bit differently in different cars. So it's very possible that my VE table that I stuck in here was already skewed. Well, actually, I shouldn't say it's possible. My VE table that I stuck in here is not accurate. So I'll show you what it looks like right now. And so some cars, it'll just kind of have this look to it right here, where they'll just go straight up. But this one's obviously going to want a big hump right here and then kick over like that. So I'm going to straighten that up. But if you guys are wondering how I do this, again, I have these layouts on my website. If you're a member to the channel, you can subscribe below. If you're a member of the channel, I'll give you 50% discount. All you got to do is email me and say, hey, I'm a member. I'll like my 50% discount on your layout, and I've got you covered there. But I also, in the members only videos, I show you guys how to do this on your own without having to buy it from me. So this tells me that compared to our MAF, which is a little bit skewed, so it's a little off right now, that we're 52% off. So I'm just, for right now, I'm going to rough it in using these numbers, but I'm also going to take that data from the same time, and I'm going to correct the MAF also. So ideally, you just keep working through this. This right here, this table is only as accurate as your MAF data. I am not calculating this off of fuel flow. I'm calculating this off of dynamic airflow. It seems to be a good way of doing it. That's easy to understand. And it's easy for me to understand as well, because I'm not a computer guy. I'm not a binary file guy, nothing like that. But anyway, so I'm going to translate this data over into the VE table, and then we're going to make some more changes. Another thing I'm going to do is, like I said, I don't like I don't like all that chop at idle, especially not in gear. If it's in park, if that's what the customer wants, whatever. But right now, the over-under tables are factory. You'll see I still have the factory tune in the background, and you'll see that these are factory. So if you want to get rid of the chop and just make it smoother whenever you're in gear, you just come to this in gear, and you can just reduce this. So we can just say, I don't know, let's just go 0.6 on the multiplier. And we'll do the same thing for, so this is the underspeed. And so basically what this table is doing, just in case I haven't explained this before, is if the desired idle and the actual idle is off by this increment in the axis, it's going to adjust the timing by this number. So we literally just reduced it by 40%. So got that, going to make the change to the VE table, going to make the change to the MAF curve, and then we're going to do it again. And in case you guys are wondering how to use this data, now on this one, let me see how many cell counts. All right, so I'm hitting 15 cell counts. So again, what I did was you right click, go to graphs layout, V versus dynamic error, and then this will tell you how to filter the data. So you can type in 100, you can type in 200, whatever you want to do. So on the dyno, I'm just going to run 15 for right now. As I dial them in, like when I'm doing a remote tuning and I'm looking at those logs, I'll do it with at least over 100 counts. But this is just, again, we're just roughing this in. So you can literally just take this data right here, copy it, and come over here to your VE table and highlight all, paste it, and multiply by percent. And you'll see how drastic, I mean, it's super drastic as to how different this VE table wants to be, which again, it's just how it works. That's why we check them. So anyway, so right here, it's pretty simple. this is the way I rough one in. It may not be accurate, it may not be perfect, it's just how I rough one in. So at 30 kPa, we're off 58%. So I'll come over here, 30 kPa, we know we're off 58%. So I'm literally just going to take this, I'm going to type in 1.58, so we've raised that up. Right here, we're 37.73. So 3773. And then I can actually do it up here too. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead on and I'm going to interpolate this way. Now, in this upper region right here, you'll see how it's starting to form. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead on and I'm going to drag this all the way down to wide open throttle. Just because I know wide open throttle, even if this upper manifold area is off, wide open throttle should be pretty close. So now you'll see what that table looks like right there. So then what I'll do is I'll smooth that out. Let's go over here to, let's do 3800. 3800, we're off 20%. So I'll do 20% right here. And then I'm just going to take it, I'm going to interpolate this way. And I'm going to interpolate down. And then I'm going to interpolate down. And then I will interpolate down. Let's go to 100 kPa. All right, so that's just the process. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna continue working this, but I just want you guys to have the process of how to do this. So once I get all this done, and I'll just shape this and I'll smooth it. Now I don't go crazy on smoothing. Like on the generic table, a lot of times it will get smoothed because of how I do my zone boundaries. And then when you click calculate coefficients, depending on how smooth your zone boundaries are will determine how smooth the table is. That's why when you see a factory table, it's super jagged and looks like an Excite Bike track. I don't know if y'all remember that game or not. But anyway, so I'm going to go through here. I'm going to finish making these adjustments and then we'll work back through it. All right, and just so you guys can see, this is what I'm going to start off with, which again, it's going to have edges once I'm done. Like, you know, 2200 may have a little bit sharper of an edge. Like, it's going to get more shape, but obviously I'm just trying to get this thing in the ballpark. So that's where the V table looks right now. Then all I'm going to do is I'm going to click this right here. I'm going to copy it, click calculate coefficients, or actually I'm going to click calculate coefficients. I'm going to copy it. Then I'm just going to come down through here. Now, I always tune all four to be the same. Theoretically, you only have to change this manifold switch open because this car doesn't have a manifold switch and we're no longer, like, we don't even have DOD in this, but it's just me being me. I'm just weird like that. But anyways, I'm going to save this and we're going to load this back into the car. All right, let's pull this thing down in gear and see if it's any smoother. This seat keeps trying to kill me. All right, so we're in drive. Way smoother. Car's not shaking around. It's not jumping. Still sounds good at the tailpipes. I'm going to go ahead on and drive. It's got a little bit of a shake when you lift off the brake. Let's put this thing in manual mode. Get it down. We'll go second gear. Now, obviously, again, the data is going to be slow, but I just want you guys to see how much better all this looks. So if you remember, we were off like 50% up there. So that's the whole goal of tuning, is you just keep taking data. Like, let the ECU tell you what it wants, but we're no longer 50% off anymore. So I'll keep sweeping through this and I'm going to get it close. Usually what I'll do is, let's go all the way up, or close to all the way up. Usually what I'll do is on the street, I'll clean this up also. So every time I take a data log on this car, stop the data log. You can stop with spacebar. I know I've told you guys that before, but a lot of you guys, you haven't seen that in the video, but you can stop the log with spacebar. But anyway, so this will kind of give you an idea. So fuel trims, we're looking much better. So we're about 10% off up top, but every time I take a data log on a car, I'm not just doing just the math curve or just the VE table or just timing. You can take all that data all at once. The longer the data logs, the better. I mean, seriously, if you can get 30, 45 minute long data logs, if you guys are driving your car an hour to work, data log it the whole time. You can get the thing so dialed in with all that data. So I'll get some guys that'll send me data logs and they'll be like a minute and a half long. You just can't make assessments from that. You've got to have the averages. The better averages you get, the better off your tune's going to be. So anyways, I'm going to keep going through this, and then we'll start getting into some wide open throttle pulls here in just a minute. All right, since we are struggling with the GoPro, I'm going to go ahead on and we'll start to do a partial pull. Get this thing up. I'm going to do third gear. This car, I think, is a 273 gear car. So, but this is just going to show you how close the wideband will actually be if your MAF curve looks good. So again, I've been watching short-term fuel trims. This is the shape of our curve right now. So usually if the shape is good, fuel trims are pretty good, it'll be pretty close on wide open throttle. So we're going to do a little rip. We're in vehicle simulation, so I'm not doing a full pull. But let's do a little pull to like 5,000 RPM and watch the wideband. Again, we're factory timing, factory knock sensor sensitivity. Everything will be fine. You can see we're a little lean, but then coming right back down. I just went ahead on and stayed in it since everything looked good. Showed a little bit of knock on tip in, but the wideband really wasn't that far off. So that's the good thing about using your narrow bands. Again, narrow bands are good at finding lambda. So if you use them to find 1.0 lambda, and fuel trims are good, if the shape is good, it should be pretty close. Even with, obviously we're always going to have a wideband in, but even if you don't have a wideband right off the bat and you just want to make sure it's good, you can do that. And then you can look at your voltages right here and know that, it's not the same on every car, obviously, but 85 lambda, we're just in the low 0.9s. And that'll just give you an idea of how close you are. So obviously you always want to tune with a wideband for sure. Don't get that wrong, but you'd be surprised at how good you can do with these narrow bands. Now, again, I'm not preaching the lack of wideband, because obviously I want everybody to have a wideband, but it just goes to show that you take what GM has, it's good stuff. All right, anyway, so we just did that little rip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at EQ error versus MAF. And I'm just going to start down here. Remember how I was talking about earlier, like 7,000 hertz or so is where you're going to want to focus on your wide open throttle stuff. You'll see how when I did the pull, we were at 7,000 hertz roughly. It's pretty much generic for every V8 engine also. So anyways, we're going to look at this. Looks like we were about 5% lean or so, and then come back down where we were still, like, keep in mind, even though I stayed in it, we were safe on this number here, but we weren't achieving target. So these cars, you got to kind of play around with it. There's not a huge difference in horsepower on fueling, so I prefer to run them a little bit rich. I feel like the LS3s really like 0.83 lambda or so. If you want to, you can run, I don't know, say 0.82, 0.83 at peak torque, and then you can taper some fuel out if you want. But don't try to run these things on air-fuel ratio and focus on, 12.5 or 12.8, because it's just not going to happen. If you look, I guess for whatever reason, air-fuel ratio commanded isn't working, of course, in my channel. But, this right here, 1410, let's see, what would that work out to? Let's see what 0.83 would be. So all I've got to do is I'm going to take my current stoic, a 14.08, and let's go, we're going to multiply it times 0.83, 11.68. So you guys are searching for that 12.5 number. This is what I'm searching for, because that's lambda right there. So anyways, that's about what these cars like. Like I said, sometimes what I'll do is I'll have, like, as your power enrichment, I'll do like 0.205 at peak torque, and then sometimes I'll come down to like 1.163 or so, which is 86 lambda. Just kind of depends on what each car wants. So anyways, for right now, all I'm worried about is making actual be the same as commanded. So I'm going to take from 7200 right here, because that's basically as soon as I rolled in. So I'm just going to take this, copy it, and we're going to go straight over to the MAF. 7200. Let's go 7200, multiply by percent. Now I'm doing this one because this is an initial. I'm going to do it by full percent. Usually once you get super close, you'll do multiply by half. I'm going to interpolate between those two numbers since I didn't have data there. and you'll see where we're currently at. You'll see it's just got that little bitty kick up right there. So what I'm going to do is let's just go down to 6,000 and I'm going to smooth it. And that should get us in the ballpark. And then above 9,000 hertz. See, the last number is 2.81%. So I'm just going to highlight all this. Go 281. And now our math curve looks good again. So we'll load that in. Let's look at VE airflow. Now, keep in mind, this is a calculation that I use. So you'll see I was a little bit rich on VE, which again, this car was referencing the math at wide open throttle. Even though the numbers are 4,000 and 3,900 or whatever on dynamic air, it's still using the math. So VE is a little bit high right here. Gets pretty close up top. So again, that's why we make our changes. We just, you know, as Greg Banish says, you like sawtooth it and just try to figure out the percentages. So anyways, we're going to go over to VE air versus dynamic airflow. Now my math was wrong. So that's one thing you have to remember, is because I was lean right here, this number is actually going to be a little bit farther off. Because again, this calculation that I'm using is basing it off of dynamic airflow, which dynamic airflow in this application, if you even want to look, you know, if you want to notice that, even though, like, I'll show you guys, because this is a big argument we have sometimes. Under dynamic, high RPM disable is 4,000, high RPM re-enable is 3,900. We'll look right here. Remember, dynamic airflow is what the ECU is using. So 3,700, notice how it's using the math. So you see Dynair and the math are the same, because we're running the math only, even though it's set at 4,000. So just get that in y'all's heads. GM, Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5. I'd say 95% of the time you're going to be math only. The reason why you dial in VVE is for torque model, airflow model, for startup especially. There's so many other things that use it for transient fueling. So when you initially tip in, it'll reference the V table. It also uses the prediction coefficients. So, but primarily, even if that's set at 4,000, you're still math. So anyways, I'm going to take this right here. 95 kPa will kick it over. Copy. So starting at 3,600. So 95 kPa at 3,600. Over here to my VE table. Actually, I'm going to save this file real quick. That way the colors look correct. Make this bigger. So we got 3,600 right here. Come on down here to 95 kPa. Right click, multiply by percent. And then what I'll do is, because all this stuff works its way downhill, I'm going to copy this flat line right here at 97.5. And I'm just going to multiply by percent all the way down. And then I'm going to go over here. And this last number is basically 1%. So I'm just going to take this, 0.99. Now, earlier when we were grabbing data, we were up in like this range. So I'm just going to come right here and just drag it down. And watch what it does. And there it is. So now you'll see I've got this big kicker right here, which we need to get rid of that. You'll see how the V table is actually shaped right around peak torque. It actually has the torque hump there. That is how it's supposed to be. This is essentially, if you look at it this way, it is essentially your torque curve. It's just how it works, because torque equals airflow. So anyways, we're going to go ahead on and I'll go over like 2,600 right here. And I will knock that out. And then I'm going to come, let's go right about here-ish. And do that. And calculate coefficients. It'll automatically change it. So now you'll see a couple little extra ridges and stuff in here. Not a big deal. Take this, copy this, go to the 4 other tables, load it in, and we'll do another hit. All right, I know we're being a little ghetto with this phone recording of the screen, but you know, I'm just trying to make do. Otherwise, if I didn't do this, I would probably end up not making this video, just like the other day when I didn't make that video when I got mad at my laptop. And so, yeah, I'm just trying to get this out here for you guys. All right, so I'm going to go back up in the third. And you'll see how much tighter our numbers already are. Fuel trims are looking pretty decent. Obviously, like I said, I'll dial them in the rest of the way on the street and double check everything. But we're just working our way through here. So I'm going to go ahead on and do another pull. Now, again, I'm not doing power pulls right now. I'm just working on fueling. I'm not touching timing or anything. This is a factory timing table. I know the knock sensors went off a little bit. It's completely normal. That's what high octane and low octane tables are for. Now, again, if it looks like it's false, I'll leave it. If it's not false, then I will pull a little bit out. But anyways, let's go ahead on and watch fueling again. Forgot the rev limiter's a little bit lower on this one. I haven't really adjusted that one yet, but had a little bit of knock, nothing crazy. See, 0.2, 0.3, again, nothing crazy. Could use a little bit of fuel, so we're definitely closer on our MAF calibration, but we're not dead on just yet. Realistically, if I would have done fourth gear simulated in the first pull, I would have already done it. Like, I would have already nailed the MAF curve, because obviously, like, we really need that load on the engine. But I just don't like turning 180 miles an hour in these cars with the 273 gears. So anyways, we're going to make some adjustments. So basically what I'm going to do is we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to add the fuel right here. It looks like, if you see, notice this jaggedness right here, almost looks like a little bit of a misfire coming in. Let me shut this car off. Could be that the fuel's a little bit delayed and it's knocking over there, like at that side. I don't know. I'll keep adding fuel up, but I'm going to watch this. So when you guys, like, I like to graph out my narrow bands like this to where you can watch them and make sure they're basically overlaid. So they're not dead on overlaid, but they're pretty close. But if you, especially like in this region, if you start to see one like with the sharp points on one bank, that's usually a misfire. So it's the other stuff I'm looking for when I'm remote tuning or just helping somebody out. So definitely need to make an adjustment there. Doing pretty good, which obviously you can look at this number right here. Doing pretty good the rest of the way though. Had a little bit of knock up here. Could be a little bit of valve train noise. So it could be false. But again, right now I'm just worried about fuel. So you'll look at our dynamic error table. You'll see that we're closer, but it's still off. And again, it's off because the MAF curve is off. Once the MAF curve is dialed, we'll just keep shifting these numbers over and we'll have this thing spot on. So I'm going to go ahead on and go back to 7,000 Hertz. And you'll see our percentages that were off. So it's definitely better. Still not perfect. So I'm going to make the change again to the MAF curve. I'll make the change to the VE table. And we're probably about time to where I'll actually put it in a power mode and we'll start to do some pulls on this car and I'll video it from outside. All right, so let's take one more with the phone and in vehicle simulation mode. Let's get back up in the third. That shift is definitely suffering. We'll definitely need to speed that up. All right, everything looks good. So let's go ahead on and roll into it. Still forgot that rev limiter still set low. But, all right, so everything looks good. Still seeing that little bit right there in the narrow band. Still showing up a little bit of knock. I actually do think that that's going to be real in this car. Don't know what fuel's in it. It could be on 91 from Colorado. We don't know. So I'm going to make that adjustment, but you'll see the V table is much tighter. If you look how I overlay these things, you can see how close everything is. So I'll make one final adjustment to the VE table. EQ error versus MAF. And we're pretty close. I mean, you can't do much better than that. That's going to be an anomaly right there. Let's see, why is it showing 4.97? Like, skip through. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what, that's an anomaly, but that's okay. It's like, need just like 1% right there. So anyways, I'll make these adjustments and we'll go into a power pull. All right, now just to go in and take care of that knock, we're going to go in and get rid of it. But a lot of the times you'll see where this is set, these numbers up here, this is set to average, right? So this is going to be the peak value. This is going to be the least or the lowest value that still, you know, it actually shows. Average, last value, count. So you'll see count, that shows you how many times it hit. So what I always do is I'm just going to go to plus, which is the most amount that it shows. I'm going to copy it. High octane. Take it and we will subtract it. And so I'll need to make a little bit of adjustment there. So what I'll do is I'm just going to go up right here and it's basically a ½ degree. Now again, with this car, when I looked underneath it, nothing was hitting. Could be a little bit of valve train noise, but there's just no sense in even letting this fly. I mean, again, these are fully loaded pulls. Now it's not fourth gear, but we'll let the knock sensors do the work on that. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, all my changes, I'm going to copy it so you guys can see what that looks like. Now again, this is a factory timing table, and I'm going to remove the same amount from low octane. So you'll see where they want blue as well. So IAT is all the same. This is all the same. LS3s are very specific about timing. You really don't have to change much. Like if you notice the factory table still in the background, I haven't touched this table right here. I haven't touched any of this stuff. I'm not saying there's no power left in it, but I'm saying that for the cars that I tune, for the customers that I deal with, I like to make sure everything is just like OE. And this is also the reason why I like teaching you guys how to do this stuff. If you want to put a couple degrees, you know, put a degree in at a time at the track and watch your mile per hour, because again, you know, mile per hour is horsepower. So if you want to add a ½ degree or a degree to a hit, if mile per hour goes up, you want to do it again, and you want to tweak it from there. If you want to get a Plex, you know, knock monitor, if you want to put a GoPro with your tailpipes and watch for detonation, there's so many different ways that you can do this. But for me, I'm just going to leave it just like this. I have plenty of fuel on power enrichment, so we may make that change on the dyno. But for right now, this is what my PE table looks like. Now again, I'll calculate these off of lambda. So the 1.149 is going to be 0.87 lambda, 0.86, 0.85, 0.84, 0.83. That's how I do it. It's 1 over lambda. So if you want to figure out what your PE number needs to be, you'll go to tools, calculator, and let me shrink this down. You do 1 divided by then whatever lambda you want. So say 0.83. See, it's the 1.205 essentially rounded up. That's what we have in the table up here. That's how you get it. So anyways, load this file in, set up the dyno, and then we'll do a rip.
All right, so we made 430 horsepower, 414 foot-pounds of torque. Now it's cold as shit in here, so it's actually weather correction factors pulling power away. The car actually made 442, 426. This is the number we follow because these are the numbers that are going to follow all the dynos around the country. So we'll go ahead on and look at engine values, and we're in the ballpark. 526 horsepower, 511 foot-pounds of torque. So that's right about what this thing should be with this camshaft, because this is an automatic. And I also did do the pull in third gear. So everything has looked okay so far. I didn't see any big puffs in the dyno, but I did see just a little bit of what looked like ridge conditions. So I'm going to pull a little bit of fuel out of it. Better yet, let's just get in the car and I'll show you the data log.
All right, so this is where we're at. Fueling looked pretty good. We're pretty much dead on. You guys, again, you can watch my EQ error right here. I mean, it's pretty damn close. Now, that dyno pull was a little bit more loaded than what we were doing earlier. I wanted to see if we were going to have any knock showing up. So, EQ error-wise, we look pretty decent. We've got degree or so here. Half degree here. I still think this is valve train related, but got a degree there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, here, let's just do this together. So again, I've got it set to max values. So we're going to take this, we're going to copy this. And again, guys, I tune like OE to the best of my ability. Whenever you have your own car that you're tuning, you're more than welcome to do whatever you would like. I try to just show what I do. I would say there's always, I would say usually I've got at least, we'll say 10 horsepower out of the car, maybe 15. That's just what I do. Again, I'm not terribly concerned about horsepower numbers. I'm trying to make this thing as good as possible here. Let me just open compare file because I want to pull from where we were at before. Alright, so we'll do a half degree out there. We're going to do 1.5 degrees here. Actually, let's do, alright, we'll do that half degree there. We're just going to make this all one. Now again, I'm comparing to the last tune now. We're going to go 1.5 degrees out here. 1.5 degrees out here. We'll do 1 degree here. Let's see, that half degree. It was on coast down. Bring this up just a little bit. And then bring this up a little bit. I don't want to go positive anywhere, so I'll move those. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, copy this, low octane table, add it to that because we're adding a negative number, so we've reduced that. Let's go to EQ error versus MAF. Start right about here. I guess I need to plug my laptop in. It's about that time. So let's start like right here-ish. Still getting that anomaly right around, must be on coast down. 8,400 again. Anyway, so 6,900. All right, so 6,900. I'm going to multiply by half. 8,400. I'm just going to get rid of that anomaly right there, and then leave the rest of it alone. So this is where our MAF curve is right now. Let's check dynamic airflow error. I mean, you can't get much closer than that. I'm probably not even going to touch that. That's not worth, like right now we're kind of pinching pennies on the MAF curve anyways. But the VE table, I mean, if I'm off a 0.5% to 1%, I mean, that shit's going to fluctuate quite a bit, honestly. So, all right, I'm going to send this in. Actually, let's pull a little bit of fuel. So let's do this. Let's go to power enrichment, EQ error, or EQ ratio gas. Let's make these 1.190. Let's go 1.76, 1.63. Oh, not that one. 1.163. And we'll just carry that out. 1.163. So that'll be a couple percent out up top. I went ahead on and moved it to the alcohol table as well, just to be uniform. Save it, send it in. Let's do another power pull. All right, so as y'all saw, tailpipe slick clean. Car basically made the exact same power, 430.8 horsepower, 415 torque. Flywheel horsepower is still basically the same, 526, 512. So we leaned it out just a touch. Tailpipes look cleaned again. Did pull some timing. Car didn't really lose anything, which tells me that the knock is a good chance that it's actually real. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, I'll probably pull another degree or so just off of this for the final tune. But the laptop's over on the charger. Anyways, I wanted you guys to see the process of what I do when a customer has unknown mods and unknown tune. So I still have a little bit of work to do. The guys will replace the brake lines in the shop, and then I'll cold start it, make sure cold start is good. I'll go out and drive it, make sure fuel trims are plus or minus. Like, I'm OCD, so I'll make sure they're plus or minus like 2 or 3%, 2 preferably, maybe even less than that. And then I'll make sure the V tables are the same. So I'll go back over. Obviously, I got to go through the transmission shift points, which you guys have seen in my 6L80 video. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on oncoming and offgoing preset pressures to make sure that it achieves its final shift time. So I'm going to reduce shift time, tighten up those shift points, but we'll go over more of that stuff in other days. But overall, good running car with 3200 converter, 430 horsepower. This car, it should run a 10, maybe like a 11.1, something like that. So it should be a pretty fun little car. But overall, the guy doesn't race the car. He just basically wanted to make sure that the car runs and drives like it's supposed to. So I'm going to do my final cleanup work. But I hope you guys like this video. I promise I'm going to have more coming out now that, again, not boat season, not motorcycle season. We'll make some more videos. Definitely going to get a laptop so we can have the 4K screen recording and everything be live. And then, like I said, if you guys want to drop me, comments down below, let me know what specific subjects you want to see. I'm not going to do full complete tunes start to finish describing every little thing. It'd be a damn 8-hour long video. I just don't have time for that. And obviously you still want to make some content. So we're definitely going to do little bits at a time. But yeah, this is where I'm at. That's what I've been up to. And I'll see you guys in the next one.